to 3. The concept is known as the theory of everything, the complete knowledge. So based on teachings of Srila Prabhupada, understanding the intention of the Acharya, we'll proceed with the prayers. All of you can recite the prayers loudly. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya.
Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale.
Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale.
Srimate Bhakti Vedanta.
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Swamin iti namine.
Swamy.
Namaste Saraswate Deve.
Namaste Saraswati Deve.
Gauravani Pracharine.
Gauravani Pracharine.
Nirvishesha Shunyavadi.
Nirvisheshadi.
Paschatya Deshatarine.
Paschatya Deshatarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya.
Prabhu Nityananda.
Prabhu Nityananda.
Shri Advaita Gadadhara.
Shri Advaita Gadadhara.
Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So we are starting this 9th chapter. So what is the connection between chapter 8 and chapter 9? Based on Prabhupada's purports. In chapter 8, Krishna had explained that an unalloyed devotee surpasses the path of light and darkness. Now Krishna will explain how to become such a devotee, how to come to the stage of unalloyed devotional service, Ananya Bhakti. The reference for this verse is 8.22. That is the verse. So 8th chapter concludes that Bhakti is the best form of yoga, and chapter 9 supplies the specific knowledge required for performing that most confidential yoga. How to become perfect in Bhakti yoga is emphasized in this chapter. So if you see, chapter 7 is also entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, and chapter 9 is considered as the most confidential knowledge. In a way, there is a similarity between both chapters. So it says, chapter 7 and chapter 9 are virtually identical. Chapter 8 can be seen as a tangent, while conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, to clear up some important points before continuing on the same line. So chapter 8 is just a small diversion, and chapter 7, where it has ended, Krishna is continuing with chapter 9. So what is the similarity between chapter 7 and chapter 9? The same topics what were elaborated in 7 are explained more implicitly in chapter 9. So like 7.1 and 2, 9.1 and 2, both speak about hearing from Krishna. 7.4 to 7, 9.4 to 10, the relationship between Krishna and the material world. Then 7.8 to 11, 9.16 to 19, Krishna's potency manifested within this matter. Then 20 to 23 in 7th chapter, and 9.20 to 28, worship of demigods versus worship of Lord Krishna. And last part, 7.24 to 26 and 9.11 to 15, impersonalist knowledge of Krishna contrasted with that of devotees. So these are the various topics which are very elaborately described in the 9th chapter. So all of you can recite the verse. Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Idam tute guhyatamam.
Idam tute guhyatamam.
Pravakshami anasuyave.
Pravakshami anasuyave.
Jnana vijnana sahitam. Yajñatva mokshasya ashubhat. Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
Idam tute guhyatamam.
Idam tute guhyatamam.
Pravakshami anasuyave.
Pravakshami anasuyave.
Jnana vijnana sahitam. Yajñatva mokshasya ashubhat. So Krishna is explaining here in this chapter, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Idam tute guhyatamam. I am going to explain to you the most confidential knowledge. So, like good, better, best, like that, how you have comparison in Sanskrit, guhya, guhyatara, guhyatama. Confidential, more confidential, most confidential. So, this is the most confidential knowledge. Pravakshami, I am going to explain to you. Anasuyave, because you are non-envious of me. This is the third qualification of Arjuna for receiving Bhagavad Gita. And what is this knowledge? Jnanam Vijnana Sahitam. It comprises of all theoretical and practical aspects. Yajnatva, knowing this complete knowledge. Mokshasya Ashubhat, one becomes free from all sinful tendencies. Sorry, the Supreme Lord said, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, Anasuyave, I shall impart to you this most secret wisdom. Pravakshami idam tute guhyatamam, knowing which, yajnatva, you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Mokshase ashubhat. That secret wisdom is jnana vijnana sahitam. So, as a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. Prabhupada quotes one verse based on Bhagavatam. Satam prasangan mamavirya samvido. This is a very famous verse. In the association of devotees, Satam prasangan, when we hear their discourses, which talk about mamavirya samvidaha, the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhavanti hrutkarna rasayana kataha. They are like nectar to the ears and which they flow into the heart. Hrutkarna. From karna, they enter into the heart. Tad joshna dasu apavarga vartmani shraddha bhakti ratir anukramishyati. So one with enthusiastically when he hears, then shraddha, faith, ratihi, attraction, bhaktihi, devotion service, anukramishati, he will be able to pick up all these things. So the Lord, understanding the mentality and sincerity of the devotee, gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna in the association of devotees. So as we are serious and sincere, Lord provides us the intelligence how to understand him. And discussion of Krishna is very potent. And if a fortunate person has such association and tries to assimilate that knowledge, then he will surely make advancement towards his spiritual realization. See, many times this aspect we neglect. We think we have read Bhagavad Gita, but have we understood Bhagavad Gita? The next level, reading has to be complete with understanding. Understanding has to be complete with realization, application. So when we heard and when we read, is it that thing what I have read? Is it 100% have I understood what I have read, what I have heard? So that makes it very important here. So Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher and higher elevation in this potent service, describes in the 9th chapter matters that are more confidential than anything he has already disclosed. That's why this chapter itself is called as Raja Vidya, the most confidential knowledge. So till now what has been explained in a nutshell, Prabhupada says, the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, first chapter is more or less an introduction to the rest of the book. The scenario has been placed. In the 2nd and 3rd chapters, the spiritual knowledge described is known as confidential because it talks about the soul and the aspects of Karma Yoga. Then 7th and 8th chapters are specifically related to devotion service. And because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are called as more confidential. Then the matters which are described in the 9th chapter deal with unalloyed pure devotion. That's why it is called as most confidential. So one who is situated in this most confidential knowledge is naturally transcendental and he has no material pangs, although he is in this material world. Quoting from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Iha Yasha Hare Krishna Karmana Manasagira, Nikilasu api avastasu Jivan Mukta sa uchyate. Rupa Goswami says, even though one he is engaged in all sorts of activities, Nikilasu api Iha Yasha Hare Krishna Karmana Manasagira, one who is engaged in word, mind, and actions. Karmana Manasa Vacha, one who is engaged in devotional service. Nikilasu api avastasu, even though he is engaged in this material world, Jivan Mukta Sauchita, he is considered to be liberated personality. So here, Krishna used that word idam jnanam. So what is this jnanam? This jnanam consists of 9 activities, which is about Shravanam, Kirtanam, all that things of Navavida Bhakti. So by practice of these 9 elements of devotion service, one will be elevated to spiritual consciousness. So by sincerely practicing, our heart becomes cleansed off. Then it becomes ready to receive the Lord, and we can understand the signs of Krishna. So to understand that a living entity is not material is not sufficient. We are not this body is not sufficient. One should recognize the difference between activities of the body and the spiritual activities, by which one can come to the understanding that he is not this body. So complete clarity is required. And the word anasuyave is also very significant here. The commentators, even though they may be highly scholarly, they are all envious of the Lord. Because, see, our tendency is when somebody has, I don't have, we become envious of that personality. Because Arjuna, even though he is a friend of the Lord, but still, he completely had no enviousness attitude towards the Lord. Even though Lord was such a scholar, Arjuna was feeling an insignificant person, accepting his current status, and he submitted to the Lord. So even the most erudite scholars write on Bhagavad Gita inaccurately because they are envious of the Lord and their commentaries are useless. Why Prabhupada is saying? Because many people have written commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, but they could not transform in the common man who has studied them. Before Prabhupada had written Bhagavad Gita, there were more than 700 editions. But still, they could not bring out the devotional perspective in anyone. They are all quoted like material management books, or in that way it all became focused, but it was never a spiritual subject or the manual for life of human being. People could not come to that understanding. And many people criticize character of Krishna without knowing him. He is only mere a fool. The commentaries given by devotees of the Lord are bona fide. So one who understands that Krishna is a pure and transcendental personality, these chapters will be very beneficial. See, in one lecture, Prabhupada says, Jnana, this knowledge, this most confidential knowledge is sentiment. Sorry. Vijnana Sahitam. It is science. Just like in scientific knowledge, you must know theoretically and practically. Like simply, you know that so much oxygen, so much hydrogen produces water by mixing. That is theoretical. You have to make water by mixing these two chemicals. That is practical. Jnana means theoretical knowledge and Vijnana means practical knowledge. So we have to do it practically, not that I have read Bhagavad Gita. No, I have become a devotee. No, you should practically demonstrate in your life that you are actually devotee. This is called as Vijnana Sahitam. And further, Prabhupada says, Krishna is very strict, but the devotees are very lenient. Krishna doesn't want to even speak with demons, but the devotees are so kind, they go to the demons and pray, kindly hear about Krishna. Like in the 18th chapter, 67 sloka, Krishna says, don't speak this Bhagavad Gita to the non-devotees. Because non-devotees will not accept. Because Krishna is saying, Sarva Dharman Parijatya Mamekam Sharanam Raja. Who will accept unless he is a devotee? The Mayavadi, Karmi, Jnani or Yogi cannot accept. Because they are envious of Krishna. I am Krishna, I am God. Why should I surrender to Krishna? Why should I accept Krishna as God? This is the position of Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kama. They cannot understand because Krishna does not disclose himself to the non-devotees. In the 7th chapter, this sloka has already been communicated. If you open 7.25, Yogamaya Samavrataha. There is a curtain of Yogamaya by which Krishna becomes restricted himself in presenting before the non-devotees. But the devotees are so merciful, they go to the Abhakta, transgressing the order of Krishna because they are so merciful. Krishna has rejected them. Let me try. This is the position of Bhakta. They are totally unenvious of Lord. The 9th process of devotional service, they bring out the transcendental consciousness within us, by which we can understand Krishna, the signs of Krishna, and we become relieved of all miseries. This is the example. This is the aspect what is being taught in this verse. So there was one devotee of the Lord by name Maniadas, who used to stay in Jagannath Puri. So he was very simple personality, engaged in selling flowers and garlands and tulsi garlands for the service of the Lord. So he had a wife and he had a wife and with family, everything and all. He used to simply maintain his family with whatever minimum offerings he used to get. So at that time, by bad luck or by situation, except him, all his family members passed away, by which he became completely renounced personality. He came to the understanding that only Lord is true and which can save him and release him from this cycle of birth and death. So he used to meagerly dress like just a cowpin, and he used to do chanting in front of the Lord. So early morning, he used to go to the ocean, take bath, and he used to carry 2 dry coconut shells, and he used to use them like kartal, and he used to sing in front of the Lord on the main road near the Simha-Dvara, seeing the Patita Pavana deity. At the entrance of the center of Jagannath temple, there will be one deity of Lord Jagannath who is known as Patita Pavana. So he used to sing to his fullest extent, to his emotion, the depth of his heart. After that, he used to enter into the temple, which is known as the Jagmohana, and he used to stand near the Garuda Stamba there, and he used to look at that beautiful form of Lord Jagannath, and he used to offer obeisances, and he used to recite various prayers. So in the temple earlier, there used to be a situation known as Purana Pandas. There will be a discussion about like how we are discussing about Bhagavad Gita. Various Puranas used to be discussed. So people, visitors, some devotees, they used to sit there. The speaker would be elaborating and they used to listen to that Purana recitation very seriously. So this Manyadas used to be unconscious of the situation. He used to chant, dance, move about, all these things and all. The speaker and the listeners, they were all becoming irritated. They were becoming disturbed by his movements and all. So sometimes he comes very close, touches the book, offers respects. Sometimes he will be swooning in ecstasy, all these things. So they became very much disturbed and they started warning him. At one particular point, they could not tolerate. Then they said, "You please get out of here. So you are disturbing the entire program." So he became very agitated and he went out without even honoring any Mahaprasad. So and he was crying and he was sitting in his place and he was meditating upon the Lord, why he has been treated in such a way and why Lord has not taken any action in that. Like he was like why Lord is seeing silently. So Lord could not tolerate. So in that dream, he came to the king's in a dream. He instructed the king to immediately go and console Manyadas and beg excuse from him. Offer him a patti. Patti means a celebrated cloth. A king recognizes a glorious personality. Take him inside the temple by holding his hands and feed him Mahaprasadam and allow him to dance in front of my deity as he pleases. And he also came as a Brahmana in front of Manyadas and gave him some Mahaprasadam. And he revealed his identity to Manyadas also, who became overwhelmed by the appearance of the Lord. Then he took that Mahaprasadam. Next day, early morning, when he was still sleeping, the king came, lifted him from his bed and hugged him, and he said, "You are such a great personality. Lord had ordered me to carry you inside the temple." And he gave him a cloth and he respected him and he said, "Dance as you like." So, and he also instructed, from today, the Purana recitation will not happen in the Jagannath temple. It will happen in the Lakshmi temple. So, so there is no disturbance for the devotees and the Lord. The devotees can nicely chant, dance, pray, shout, whatever they want in front of the Lord, let them sing. And in this way, the devotee was like, the whole perspective is the knowledge, what we are hearing, but it is not complete, not to respect a devotee. The Purana recitation was happening, but they don't know that a great devotee is how to recognize him, how to respect him. So in that way, their knowledge was not complete. So Lord was teaching to us this devotional service is practiced completely when we hear from the authority and when we understand properly and when we reach to that conclusion in a proper consciousness. Okay. Next, Krishna explains the speciality of this chapter. All of you can recite. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam.
Rajavidya Rajaguhyam.
Rajavidya Rajaguhyam.
Pavitram idamuttamam.
Pavitram idamuttamam.
Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. Susukum tattum avyayam. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam
Vidya Rajaguhyam
Pavitram Namuttamam Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmyam
Shamavakam
Susukum Kartum Avyayam.
Avyayam.
So in these 7 aspects of this transcendental knowledge, Krishna explains. He says this knowledge is Raja Vidya, the king of knowledge. Raja Guhyam, it is most confidential. Pavitram, very pure. Idam Uttamam, the best. Pratyaksha Avagamam, one can personally understand this. Avagamam, one can realize this. Dharmyam, it is full of religious principles. Susukum Kartum Avyayam, by doing it, one enjoys. These are the 7 aspects of this transcendental knowledge. So this knowledge is the king of education, Raja Vidya, the most secret of all secrets, Raja Guhyam. It is the purest knowledge, Pavitram, because it gives the direct perception of the self by realization. Pratyaksha Avagamam, it is the perfection of religion, Dharmyam, it is everlasting. And it is joyfully performed. Susukum Kartum Avyayam. So this chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called King of Education because this is the essence of all doctrines and philosophies explained before. Because till now Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Astanga Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, various philosophies have been taught. So this is the king of all knowledge. So why this knowledge is most confidential? Because this involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body. And the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. Modern education, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They are educated in external knowledge. Because none of the university or educational institution where the science of spirit soul is instructed. People are placing great stress on the bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul. Means how to make this body comfortable is the current day phenomena. How to make us lazy, how to make us dull, dumbo is the modern day inventions. They are more of tamasic rather than sattvic. They only create disturbance on a long run. So confidential knowledge, it is simply knowing that spirit soul is different from this body and its nature is immutable, indestructible and eternal as explained in 2nd chapter. But that gives no positive information about the soul. So most confidential knowledge is the activities in the spiritual kingdom. So impersonalists are void philosophy. When the body is finished, they say one is liberated and the soul remains in void and becomes impersonal. But how can the soul which is active within the body be inactive after being liberated from the body? It is always active. So refuted by Bhakti Yoga principles. So how can one perceive the result? So it is said that the execution of devotional service is so perfect that one can perceive the results directly. Pratyaksha Avagamam. That specific word is there. One can personally experience it. So by chanting, one feels transcendental pleasure and very quickly becomes purified of all material contamination. By engaging in any kind of support to this process, one feels spiritual progress. Navavida Bhakti, everything is enlightening. One feels very happy. Susukum Kartum Avyayam. This advancement in spiritual life does not depend upon any kind of previous education or qualification. The method is so pure, but by simply engaging in it, one becomes pure. Pavitram idam uttamam. A quotation from Vedanta Sutra which says, Prakashasya karmani abhyasat. Devotion service is so potent that simply by engaging in activities of devotion service, one becomes enlightened without a doubt. And Narada says, if one is engaged simply in acts of devotion service, everything is revealed to him automatically and he can understand. This is called as prakasha, directly perceived. Then why is this knowledge purest from all activities? In the Padma Purana, man's sinful activities have been analyzed and are shown to be the results of sin after sin. Those who are engaged in fruitive activities are entangled in different stages and forms of sinful reactions. Because whatever activity you do, it becomes a seed. That seed sprouts up, becomes a tree, it flowers, it becomes fruits. That fruit can be sweet or bitter. So the seed transforms into a fruit, so which we enjoy. So that is papa or punya. So those who are engaged in devotional service are already freed from all reactions. So what is so special about bhakti? When you engage in bhakti, all the seeds which are planting becomes roasted off. A roasted seed cannot germinate. So all sinful reactions, whether fructified in the stalk or in the form of a seed, gradually vanish. Therefore, the purifying potency of devotional service is very strong. That's why it is called as Pavitram Uttamam, the purest. So what is the highest perfection of religion? Dharmyam. The highest perfection of religion is the attainment of stage of devotional service, bhakti. The Vedic knowledge is required for the understanding of the path of self-realization. The process is so potent that even performing the religious process regularly, one can be raised to the highest perfection. So how is this possible? Acharyavan Purusho Veda, one who is in association with great acharyas, even if he is not educated or has not studied the Vedas, can become familiar with all the knowledge necessary for realization. So how is the process of devotion service? A very happy one. In every state, devotional service is joyful. One can execute devotional service even in the most poverty-stricken condition. Like in this chapter only, Lord says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. One can offer simply a water, leaf, anything, but out of devotion. Simply by tasting the tulsi leaves offered at the lotus feet of the Lord, great sages like Sanat Kumara became great devotees. In the third canto, this specific part, 3.15.43, this specific verse has been glorified. The devotional process is very nice and it can be executed in a happy mode. Lord accepts only the love with which things are offered to him. So the basic element, bhaktya, love and devotion is the one what Lord is saying. He is not saying how big you offer or how great you offer or how simple you offer. In the devotional service, is the devotional service eternally existing? So devotional service is not temporary. It exists even after liberation. Actual devotional service begins after liberation. So by bhakti, one can understand the Lord. In Bhagavatam, evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha. When one's heart is cleared of all nonsense, one can understand what God is. No one can understand the Lord by executing karma, jnana or ashtanga yoga or by any other yoga independently. So this is the story of one more devotee by name Bhanudas, who stayed in Maharashtra. So when he was a small boy, he was performed the thread ceremony and he was sent to learn the Vedas, but he was not interested in learning and would not go to the classes properly. So one day his father became angry and shouted at him. So becoming afraid of his father, Bhanu decided to run away. So he went to the forest and found an underground temple. So when he went inside the temple, he saw the deity of Lord Narayana there. He offered obeisances lovingly and began his prayers. Seeing the sincerity of the boy's devotion, the Lord was pleased and he took the form of a Brahmana and came in front of him and gave him some milk to drink and asked him not to be afraid of anyone and assured that he would take care of him and feed him regularly. So meanwhile, parents were also searching for the lost child. They also prayed to the Lord if their son would return and decided that they would not shout him and ask him to study anymore. So he stayed there for 7 days. One day when he came out, a villager saw him and went and informed his father. So father came with some of his friends and they found the underground temple and they found the boy. They were very happy and they were thinking how the boy survived for 7 days without food. Then Bhanudas explained that every day a Brahmana used to come and give him some food regularly and take care of him. So they understood it was Lord only who was taking care of that boy. So they did not send him to school anymore. So Bhanudas, he devoted completely himself for the worship of the Lord. After a few years, he was married, and as time goes on, his parents passed away. Now he is forced to accept the father's profession, but he was not interested in worldly affairs, but he only wanted to be engaged as a servicer of Lord Vittala. So some of his relatives came to him and explained to him that it is his duty to take care of the family. So he has wife and children. So because he had not studied, he will not be able to earn like other Brahmanas. So they came out with a proposal that they would give him some capital amount and they would set up a business for him. So he could sell the cloths and he could make business and he could survive. He and his family could survive with the profits. So they took him to the market. They spoke to the nearby shopkeepers and they all explained to him how the business runs. So what will be his cost, how he has to present, and how he has to talk to people. So he said, no, I am not going to talk to so much like whatever is my cost, and I will explain to him this is my cost and this is the profit what I am expecting. If you are interested, please purchase. The other fellow shopkeepers and all, they thought he's initially everybody will be like that only, very truthful. But once they see money, they become carried away. But Bhanudas was not at all bothered. He used to sit there in his shop and he used to simply chant the holy name. If some customer comes, he used to say, so this is the price of the cloth. If you are interested, please purchase. Or else you can go to the next shop. But seeing his sincerity and his seriousness, all the customers were going to his shop only because he was giving them at very fair prices. So all the other shopkeepers now they started becoming envious of him. And they were thinking that because of him, they were losing all their business. So all the shopkeepers went to a far off village to sell their clothes. So it became almost in the evening when they reached the village, and Bhanudas came to know that there is a Hare Kirtana happening in the village. So he then asked the other shopkeepers if they would come for the Kirtan. All of them refused and said that they were too tired to go to Kirtan. So Bhanudas asked them to take care of his cart and the clothes, and he went to the Kirtan. So he engaged in the participation. He took blessings from the sadhus there. Then in the meantime, other shopkeepers were speaking to each other. They decided to free the horse of Bhanudas so that it would get lost. They also took the bundles of cloth from the cart and threw it into a pit. And then they would say to the Bhanudas that when they were sleeping, some thief had come and taken away the items. So Vittala, on seeing the situation, came as a Brahmana and took the horse of Bhanudas and sat down in the marketplace, holding it. Then Vittala wanted to teach the other shopkeepers a lesson. A group of thieves came there and took the cloth and horses of all the other shopkeepers and ran away. Bhanudas, when finished the kirtan and came back to take some rest, when he was returning, he found the Brahmana holding the horse. As soon as he came near, the Brahmana disappeared. He then took his horse and went to meet the other shopkeepers. The shopkeepers, on seeing him, told him the truth and said that it was because of their greed that Lord Vittala had punished them. Now the Lord Bhanudas could understand that the Brahmana who was holding his horse was none other than Lord Vittala. And he felt bad that he could not recognize the Lord who has come to him to take care of his belongings. Then he decided that he would not get into these worldly affairs anymore and would return home and be in the service of the Lord. Then Bhanudas gave this horse and cart and his clothes and asked them to distribute among themselves. From then on, every Ashada Ekadasi and Kartika Ekadasi, he would go on a Varkari, means people walk to Pandharpur to have darshan of the Lord by singing the glories. So there was a Brahmana living in the sacred city of Pandharpur who decided to set out on a yatra. So one day he came to Vidyanagar and decided to meet the king, Rajaram, so that he could get some gifts from the king. He went to the palace and told the doorkeeper that he had come from Pandharpur to meet the king. The king then called him and gave him his respects and asked him to join him in his prayers to Ambika. He then took the Brahmana with him to the temple. And on the way, there was a huge garden which was created by the king to send flowers to the temple. The temple was built in an extraordinary manner and walls are all plated with silver. There were a lot of Brahmanas performing pujas there. The goddesses also was adorned with lots of jewels and best of garments. The king then performed his puja to the goddesses and sat down for a while. He then asked the Brahmana if he had seen any of these temples of such an equivalent status to him. So he also commented that the Vittala temple in Pandharpur is not that taken care of so nicely like how he was taking care of his temple. He then said that the poor Brahmana who do service to Lord there must be some difficulty for them. So spend as much as he does his for this temple. So this made the Brahmana become angry. Then he told the king, without seeing Pandharpur, how can you speak? The city of Pandharpur was designed none other than Vishwakarma, and the temple was plated with gold. He only said that the city of Pandharpur had forests like Kalparvaksha trees and Surabhi cows, and there was lot of touchstones, Vajra Vaidurya. So he said that the Vaishnavas who perform Kirtan for Vittala and the Chandrabhaga river is like the nectar which flows. He also said that all the 33 crore devatas, they stand there at the service of the Lord. He also said that Ambika, whom the king is worshipping, is also a maid servant who sweeps the temple and purifies herself. So by listening all these words of the Brahmana, king became very furious. And he said he is going to punish him if the Brahmana to death if whatever he has explained is not true. The king then started towards Pandharpur with a small army, and the Brahmana was also coming behind him. On the way, the Brahmana was thinking, if king doesn't see the things the way he has described, then he will kill him. So then he dedicated completely to the Vittala in his heart. He was praying all the way. On reaching Pandharpur, the king sat on an elephant and started looking at the city. He saw the temple was glittering with gold and all the other things exactly as described by the Brahmana. He then prostrated to the Brahmana and explained to him that it was as the Brahmana had explained, the Pandharpur was true to its nature. Brahmana was very amazed and he thanked Vittala for saving his life. Then as they entered, the king saw a herd of Surabhi cows. Then the pure devotees were performing kirtan. And all the rivers were taking their bodily form and coming and doing holy dip in Chandrabhaga river. Then the king himself had a dip in the Chandrabhaga and went to the temple to have darshan. So when he went there, the Ashtamatas, like Ambika and others, they were also, he saw them. And there he saw Narada singing the praises of Lord Vittala. Then the king embraced Vittala and fell at his feet. Then king also fell at the Brahmana's feet and told him that he was his guru. And said that he had seen that millions of times more than what the Brahmana had described. Then he prayed to the Vittala, asking him to come to his Vidyanagara. Vittala then told him he would come, but on the way he keeps him down, there he would stay. And after that the king, sorry, so during the 1 month, the king has taken him to the palace, but the devotees, when they came for the Ashada Varkaris, they could not have darshan of the Lord. So people became very much depressed and desolate. The devotees there, they discussed among themselves and they decided someone should go to Vidyanagara and get back the Vittala to Pandharpur. So Bhanudas, who was sitting in the group, told them that he would go and get Vittala. He left for Vidyanagara. After walking for several days, he reached finally Vidyanagara and inquired from the people about Vittala. And nobody could answer Bhanudas due to their fear about the king. But one Vaishnava told him that Vittala was in the palace temple and the king worships him privately and the temple is closed as soon as the king finishes his worship and the temple is heavily guarded. So Bhanudas was very happy and at midnight he went to the palace temple. As he approached the temple, the guards fell asleep and the locks opened automatically. He went inside and offered obeisances to the Vittala and embraced him and pleaded with affection and asked him why he had deserted all his devotees at Pandharpur and come to here to be with the king. So Vittala explained to him that it was the king who has brought him here forcefully and that he was actually missing Pandharpur. Vittala then told him that tomorrow morning he would come to him with Pandharpur. He then removed his necklace and placed it on Bhanudas and asked him to go and take some rest as he was now prepared for a journey to Pandharpur tomorrow. The king came to the temple in the next morning as usual to see Vittala. When the puja was being performed, he saw that the necklace was missing. So he became very angry and ordered the guards to immediately search for the missing necklace. The guards went in all directions. So just then Bhanudas had a bath in the river and was singing the prayers to the Lord. When the guards came there, they saw the necklace on him and immediately arrested him. They took him to the king and gave the necklace to the king. The king ordered the guards to impale Bhanudas. But Bhanudas requested that the guards be allowed to see Vittala for one last time before his death. Then the guards took him to the temple and Bhanudas asked Vittala why he had done this to him. He then asked him if he had done this only because he had come to take him back to Pandharpur. Then he told Vittala that he has understood that he would do this to anyone who comes here to take him to Pandri, as he has now started enjoying the royal service. Even if it takes thousands of births, he would only come back to him and not leave him. Then the guards took Bhanudas away from the temple, placed him on a stake for impaling him on his shoulder and hastened to the sharp onto the ground. As they were about to execute, that impelling stake had burst and flowers fell on Bhanudas. The crowd that had gathered there to see his execution and the guards, they were all amazed. They started praising Bhanudas and they said he was a true Vaishnava. And the guards ran to the king and explained to him what had happened. The king came to Bhanudas and apologized to him and took him to the temple again. As soon as Bhanudas saw Vittala, he embraced his feet. Vittala then asked Bhanudasa to carry him to Pandharpur. Then Rajaram held his feet of Vittala and cried why he was leaving him. Vittala told him he has done injustice by punishing Bhanudas, so he would now leave him. He also said that he had come and stayed with him for a few days because of his past punya done in his previous life. So then Bhanudas asked Vittala how he will be able to carry him by himself. Vittala then took a very smaller form and asked him to put him in a bag so that Bhanudas can carry Vittala and reach to his journey of Pandharpur. When Bhanudas arrived in Pandharpur, he placed the bag on the ground and he went on to have bath in the river. When Bhanudas came back, he saw that Vittala has grown to his own size, old size. He then asked him how he would be able to carry to the temple. Vittala then asked him to go to the temple and inform all the priests and come back so that they will all be able to carry the Lord to the temple. Then when Bhanudas went to the temple and informed all the devotees, they all came with a happy mood to carry the Lord. They performed Kirtana while welcoming the Lord and they took him on a procession and they took him to the temple and placed him back in the temple. The whole city of Pandharpur was in a festive mood and the celebrations were all over. So everyone praised Bhanudas for his deeds. See, this is the sincerity of his purpose. He was not bothered for his inconvenience. Our Lord was doing all these things to glorify his devotee also. So we have to be very careful when we are practicing devotion service not to offend the Vaishnavas. So we will be deprived of our opportunity to engage in devotion service. So what we have to understand. Sincerity and seriousness is the purpose of devotion service. Okay, next. So many people say, okay, since this knowledge is supreme, so is there any prerequisite for somebody who can understand this or anybody and everybody can understand this? So Lord is giving his opinion. All of you can recite the verse. Ashraddadana Purusha
Ashraddadana Purusha
Dharmasyasya Parantapa
Dharmasasya Parantapa
Aprapyamam Nivartante
Aprapyama Nivardante
Mrityu Samsara Vartmani
Samsara Vartmani
Ashraddadana Purusha
Ashraddadana Purusha
Dharmasyasya Parantapa
Dharmasasya Parantapa
Aprapyamam Nivartante
Aprapyama Nivardante
Mrityu Samsara Vartmani.
Mrityu Sansara Vartmani.
So Ashraddadanaha, those who are not faithful, Dharmasyasya Parantapa, on the path of devotion service, O Arjuna, Aprapyamam Nivartante, they will not be able to, Aprapyamam means they will not be able to achieve me. Nivartante, they will return back. Mrityu Samsara Vartmani, to the cycle of birth and death. So here says, those who are not faithful on the path of devotion service cannot attain me. Ashraddadana Purusha Dharmasyasya Aprapyamam, O conqueror of foes, Parantapa, but return to this birth and death in his material world. Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. So the faithless cannot accomplish this process of bhakti. That is the essence of this verse. Then how faith is created? Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature from great personalities, they have no faith in the Lord. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in devotion service of the Lord. Thus, faith is the most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. Then what is definition of faith? Simply by serving Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. Analogy, just as watering the root of a tree satisfies the whole tree, feeding the stomach satisfies all the bodily parts, service to the Lord satisfies everything. So what is the expectation from a person of reading Bhagavad Gita? One should give up all other engagements and adopt to the service of the Lord. And if one is convinced of this philosophy, that is his faith. It is like We are offering faith is like to a nurturing tree. We are offering all the basic ingredients so that it becomes strong and firm. There are three types of Krishna conscious men based on the faith. Third one is the lowest. They may become engaged, but because they haven't complete conviction and faith, it is very difficult for them to continue. They have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith. They are every chance of falling down. Officially, they may be engaged in bhakti for some ulterior purposes, but they cannot achieve highest perfectional stage. Example, people coming to temple with hidden motives. He has faith in conviction that devotional service to Krishna is very good, but he has no knowledge of Krishna through the scriptures. They have some tendencies towards karma, jnana, and sometimes they are disturbed. As soon as the infection of karma and jnana is vanquished, they become second class or first class persons. The second class is firm faith. They are not very advanced in understanding devotional scriptures, but automatically have firm faith that Krishna Bhakti or service to Krishna is the best course, and so in good faith they take it up. They simply try to follow the association and simplicity, and there is no chance of falling down. And the first level is with firm faith and well versed in devotional scriptures, and there is no chance at all of falling down. And what is the status of those who have no faith? Though even after hearing about Krishna, those who have no faith and the excellence of devotion service, they think that is simply an eulogy, and they find the path very difficult. And there is very little hope for them in gaining perfection. In one lecture, Prabhupada says, faithless means anyone can understand. Those who do not believe in the words of Lord. Just like a child, by nature, he has to believe his parents, his superiors, his teacher. If he does not believe in the words of the superior, then where is his possibility of education? This is the first qualification. If you go to a teacher to learn ABCD, the teacher says, my dear child, you begin from the left side in this way. The student says, why shall I begin this way? I shall begin this way. That is his faithless. He cannot make any progress. The first qualification is Shraddha Dana, faithful. If you cannot believe in the words of somebody whom you are going to appoint as your teacher, if you have no faith in his words, then what is the use of going to such a teacher? Don't waste your time and don't waste his time. Therefore, those who are going to learn to become a disciple, he must believe in the words of the teacher. If you are doubtful, you should not go to such a teacher. This is the first qualification. If you do not believe somebody, then you should find out someone else upon whom you can put your faith. Yes, here is the right man who can teach me. Otherwise, there is no use of going to a teacher. This is the Vedic principle. There was one famous devotee by name Bandhu Mohanty in Jajpur, Orissa. A very poor person who maintained his family, who had two daughters, wife, very devoted to him. They are all very good personalities. Every day they used to beg, and whatever they used to get by begging, they used to finish for the day. One time, so situation happened, there was a drought in that area. There was no food for the people itself. So when there was no food, where will donation come from? This family was suffering for a long time. They were going to various places, but nobody was giving them any food because they themselves were starving from food. So one day, wife was speaking to the husband, saying that the children, they could not survive the process. One more day or couple of days, we will all die. So we should do something. Do you have any relatives everywhere so that we can go and take their shelter? No, I have no shelter. I have no friends or relatives anywhere. But I had one friend who was very rich, but he stays in Jagannath Puri. So he is very rich and very gorgeous and very dayalu. If we go and ask him shelter, might be he can give us an opportunity. Then wife became very happy that, okay, there is one rich friend, so let us go and take his shelter. Immediately wife, both children started. In 4 days, they had reached Jagannath Puri. Some festival was going on at that time. The temple was fully crowded. There were people there, pandas were there, catching sticks, and so rush it was that they could not have darshan of the Lord. So when they could not have darshan inside, in the entrance itself, there will be one Jagannath people. So they had darshan and they went away aside. There was a kitchen store where they wash the rice and the ganji comes out, the starch comes out. They were sitting there at the corner, and the husband was saying, today we'll sit here and we'll take rest. Then family was saying, no, we are starving too much. We don't know whether we'll survive till tomorrow morning. No, this person said, no, my friend is very busy. There were so many guests at his house. So there was security was too heavy. They were only sending on selected invitations. So today we could not go. Tomorrow morning we'll go. In the meantime, we'll drink this ganji and we'll survive for this morning. So they drank that starch, whatever is coming there, and they slept off that night. And Pujari had locked the temple and they went away. But Lord, he could not see that his dear devotee and dear friend becoming starving. So Lord is saying, if my devotee is serving, my friend is sleeping without food, how I can sleep? So he went to his storeroom, picked up a golden plate, all the dry prasadam and all the best offerings, what was there, he had kept it onto the plate and went out to the door and he was calling, Bandhu Mahanti, please come here. This person was thinking, there can be many people by that name. Who knows me? I am here. Nobody knows me that my name here. Bandhu Mahanti from Jajpur, who have come with your family, who drank that ganji, was sleeping there, please come here. Then he understood, okay, it was me only. Then he went there, he gave this and he said, you eat this prasadam tonight, tomorrow morning I take care of your arrangements, everything. So he woke up his family, night they had a sumptuous feast and they slept off. Washed the plate, he went back to give back that plate, but that person was not there. That old pujari was not there. So he brought the plate and covered it in his cloth and he thought, tomorrow morning I'll go and hang it over. Next day morning, Mangalarti, they opened the door and everybody was with him and they went inside to bring the plate for offering. The plate was missing inside. So immediately the message was communicated to the guards. So then after some time, some visitors saw some golden plate flashing with his family. Came and caught hold of Bandhu Mahanti and his wife and family. They were beating him left and right, and this family was saying, no, what the old Brahmana came, he had handed over, no, we had not stolen it, all these things, but they were not listening. Caught hold of him and put him in the jail. And that night, after everything was over, the temple was closed and Lord could not tolerate the suffering for his devotee. He immediately climbed on his Garuda, went to the king, who was staying in his palace elsewhere. And in the dream, he ordered the king, see, when a guest comes to your house, will you feed him or not? Will not send him empty-handed. So similarly, my friend had come from such a far-off place, with me as the only shelter. And I have given him from my plate, my offering. What is your problem? Did I give your father's property or what? It is my thing I have given to him. Why you are acting such a crazily, all these things and all for my guest? Immediately tomorrow morning, release him and you do him satkara and you maintain his whole family from now. And you take care of him. If you miss any of these things, I wipe out your entire family. And the Lord gave this warning and came back. So immediately the king woke up, immediately called his ministers and gave him, ordered him that something situation happened like this or what. So immediately king personally went to the prison, released the person, Bandhu Mahanti, fell at his lotus feet and said, because of you, it's a good fortune that I had your darshan. Lord personally was taking care of you. So Lord had instructed me, he will bring him back, give him good clothes, give him a good post, give him a house here next to Jagannath temple, so that he could have regularly darshan of the Lord. So all these things were all prospered.
So this is a simple perspective. We have complete faith. Lord is ready to deliver us from the cycle of birth and death. But are we ready? That is the only aspect from our side. Lord is ready from his side. Are we ready from our side? Okay, any questions or doubts, please?
Okay.
Okay, then if there are no doubts, again, we'll meet next week, continue with the Bhagavad Gita, with the next verses of 9th chapter. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.